I found my husband's secret bank account. Then I emptied it at his company Christmas party. You won't believe what I discovered when I accidentally found my husband's hidden bank account with over $200,000 in it while he was telling me we were broke and couldn't afford Christmas presents for our kids. By the time I finished my revenge at his company Christmas party, I had not only exposed his lies to everyone who mattered to his career, but I had also transferred every single penny to my own account and filed for divorce. But the most shocking part? The money he was hiding wasn't just his salary. It was much worse than I ever imagined. My name is Rebecca, and I'm 34 years old. I got married to my husband Michael 8 years ago, when we were both young professionals starting our careers. In 2019, we bought our first home together, and in 2021, we welcomed our twin boys, Jake and Connor. I thought we had built the perfect life. A loving marriage, beautiful children, a nice house in the suburbs, and financial stability that would give our family security for years to come. I had no idea that Michael had been living a double life, hiding money from me while making me believe we were struggling financially. For the first 6 years of our marriage, Michael and I were completely transparent about our finances. We had joint bank accounts, shared credit cards, and made all major financial decisions together. Michael worked as a senior manager at a large marketing firm, and I worked part-time as a graphic designer, while primarily taking care of our children. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable and never worried about paying our bills or providing for our family. That all changed about 2 years ago when Michael told me that his company was going through financial difficulties, and that he was facing potential salary cuts and reduced hours. He seemed genuinely worried about our family's financial future, and suggested that we needed to start being much more careful with our spending. "Rebecca," Michael said one evening as we were reviewing our monthly budget, "I need to talk to you about some changes at work. The company is struggling, and they're implementing cost-cutting measures that are going to affect everyone's salary." I was concerned but supportive. Michael had always been a hard worker and a good provider for our family, so I trusted that he was telling me the truth about his workplace situation. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Are you going to lose your job?" Michael shook his head. "No, I don't think they'll lay people off, but they're cutting everyone's salary by about 20% and eliminating bonuses and overtime opportunities. It's going to mean a significant reduction in our household income." I felt worried about how we were going to manage with less money, especially with 2 young children who seemed to need new clothes, toys, and activities constantly. But I told Michael that we would figure it out together, and that our family could handle any financial challenges as long as we were honest with each other about our situation. Over the following months, Michael became increasingly strict about our spending. He would scrutinize every purchase I made, question whether we really needed various household items, and constantly remind me that we needed to save money wherever possible. "Do we really need to buy name-brand cereal?" Michael would ask when I came home from grocery shopping. "The generic brands are half the price and taste exactly the same." Or he would say, "Rebecca, I noticed you bought the boys new shoes again. Didn't we just buy them shoes last month? We need to make sure we're not spending money on things they don't absolutely need." Michael's financial anxiety seemed to be affecting every aspect of our daily life. He would turn off lights obsessively, complain about the heating bill, and suggest that we cancel subscriptions and memberships that we had enjoyed for years. But the most painful part of Michael's newfound frugality was how it affected our children's lives. Michael started saying that we couldn't afford things like swimming lessons, birthday parties for their friends, or even small treats like ice cream when we went to the park. "Boys, we need to skip the ice cream today," Michael would tell Jake and Connor when they asked for their usual weekend treats. "Daddy's work isn't giving him as much money right now, so we need to save our dollars for important things like food and clothes." Watching our 4-year-old sons try to understand why their father couldn't afford $2 ice cream cones was heartbreaking. They would nod seriously and say they understood, but I could see the disappointment in their little faces. Michael also started working longer hours, claiming that he needed to prove his value to the company during the financial difficulties. He would leave early in the morning and come home late at night, often after the boys were already in bed. "I hate being away from you guys so much," Michael would say when I complained about his long absences. "But I need to show my boss that I'm indispensable." If there are layoffs, I want to make sure I'm not on the list. I felt sorry for Michael because he seemed to be under tremendous pressure and stress. He was working harder than ever while earning less money, and the financial strain was clearly taking a toll on his mental and physical health. To help our family's financial situation, I started looking for ways to increase my own income. I took on additional freelance graphic design projects, worked longer hours, and even considered going back to full-time work despite the challenges of finding childcare for the twins. Michael, I've been thinking about going back to work full-time, I suggested during one of our budget discussions. If I can find a good daycare situation for Jake and Connor, my salary could really help with our financial situation. But Michael was resistant to the idea of me working more hours. He said that childcare costs would eat up most of my additional income, and that our children needed their mother to be available for them during these formative years. I don't want you to sacrifice your relationship with the boys just because of temporary financial problems, Michael said. My salary situation will improve eventually, and I want you to be able to focus on being a mom while they're still young. Michael's concern for our children was touching, but it also meant that our family's financial burden was resting entirely on his shoulders. I felt guilty that I wasn't contributing more to our household income, especially when money was so tight. As the months went by, our financial situation seemed to get worse rather than better. Michael would come home looking stressed and defeated, talking about how his company's problems were getting more severe, and how uncertain his job security had become. They're talking about another round of salary cuts, Michael would tell me. I don't know how we're going to manage if they reduce my pay even more. We started falling behind on some bills, using credit cards for basic expenses, and constantly worrying about money. I felt like we were living paycheck to paycheck despite Michael's supposedly good job at a successful marketing firm. The financial stress was affecting our marriage as well. Michael and I would argue about spending decisions, blame each other for unnecessary expenses, and constantly feel anxious about our family's future. The love and partnership that had always characterized our relationship was being replaced by tension and resentment. But the worst part was watching our children absorb the stress and anxiety that had taken over our household. Jake and Connor started asking questions about why we couldn't afford things they wanted, why Daddy seemed sad all the time, and whether we were going to lose our house. "Mommy," Connor asked me one day as I was explaining why we couldn't buy a toy he wanted, "are we poor now?" The question broke my heart, because I realized that our financial problems were affecting our children's sense of security and happiness. They were too young to understand adult financial problems, but they were definitely feeling the impact of the constant stress and restrictions. As Christmas approached last year, our financial situation reached a crisis point. Michael told me that we would need to have a very modest holiday celebration because we simply couldn't afford to spend money on gifts, decorations, or special foods. "I know it's disappointing," Michael said as we discussed our Christmas plans, "but we need to focus on what's really important, being together as a family. The boys are young enough that they won't remember whether they got a lot of presents or just a few meaningful ones." I understood Michael's logic, but I also felt heartbroken at the thought of our children having a sparse Christmas because of our financial problems. Jake and Connor had been looking forward to Christmas for months, making lists of toys they hoped Santa would bring, and talking excitedly about holiday traditions. But I agreed to keep Christmas simple and inexpensive, and I spent weeks finding creative ways to make the holiday special without spending much money. I made homemade decorations, planned inexpensive activities, and searched for affordable gifts that would still bring joy to our children. 2 weeks before Christmas, I was using Michael's laptop to work on a freelance design project because mine was being repaired. I needed to access his email to send the completed work to my client, and that's when I accidentally discovered something that changed everything. While looking for the sent folder in Michael's email, I noticed a series of automated bank notifications from an account I had never seen before. The subject lines mentioned deposits, transfers, and balance updates for an account ending in numbers I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it might be a work-related account or some kind of banking error, but curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on one of the emails to see what it was about. What I saw made my blood run cold. The email was a monthly statement for a savings account in Michael's name that contained over $200,000. The account showed regular deposits of thousands of dollars every month for the past 2 years. Exactly the time period when Michael had been telling me that his salary was being cut and our family was struggling financially. I stared at the computer screen in shock, trying to process what I was seeing. While I had been working extra hours using coupons, buying generic groceries, and telling our children we couldn't afford ice cream, Michael had been secretly depositing money into a hidden account that contained more cash than I had ever seen in my life. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more emails and discovered additional accounts, investment statements, and financial documents that painted a picture of wealth and financial security that was completely opposite to what Michael had been telling me. Michael wasn't facing salary cuts. He had been getting raises and bonuses. His company wasn't struggling, they were thriving, and he was being rewarded for his success. Our family wasn't broke. Michael was systematically hiding money from me, while making me believe we were on the verge of financial ruin. But the hidden money was just the beginning of what I discovered. As I dug deeper into Michael's secret financial life, I found evidence of purchases and expenses that revealed he had been living completely differently when I wasn't around. There were receipts for expensive dinners at restaurants I had never heard of, charges for luxury hotels during business trips, and purchases from high-end stores for clothes and accessories that I had never seen Michael wear. Most shocking of all, I found evidence that Michael had been taking vacations and weekend trips that he had never mentioned to me. Credit card statements showed flights, hotel stays, and entertainment expenses for trips that had happened while Michael told me he was working overtime or attending business conferences. The financial deception was staggering, but the emotional betrayal was even worse. Michael had been watching me stress about money, work extra hours to help our family, and deny our children basic pleasures, all while he was secretly wealthy and living a luxurious lifestyle behind my back. I printed out every document I could find and spent the next several hours piecing together the full scope of Michael's deception. What I discovered was that over the past 2 years, Michael had stolen over $300,000 from our family by hiding his real income and using our supposed financial difficulties as an excuse to control and manipulate me. But I also discovered something else that made Michael's betrayal even more cruel. The business trips and conferences that Michael claimed to attend for work were actually romantic getaways with his secretary, a woman named Amanda who worked at his marketing firm. Michael wasn't just hiding money from me. He was using that money to fund an affair with another woman while telling me that our family couldn't afford basic necessities. The credit card statements showed that Michael and Amanda had been taking expensive vacations together, staying at luxury resorts, and enjoying the kind of lifestyle that Michael told me we couldn't afford as a family. While I was at home with our children, worrying about how to pay for groceries and feeling guilty about every small purchase, Michael was taking his mistress to 5-star hotels and spending thousands of dollars on romantic dinners and entertainment. The level of betrayal and cruelty was beyond anything I could have imagined. Michael had systematically lied to me about every aspect of our financial and personal life, while living like a wealthy bachelor with his secret girlfriend. That night, after I had gathered all the evidence of Michael's deception, I sat in our living room looking at our modest Christmas tree and thinking about how Michael had made me feel guilty for spending $40 on decorations. Meanwhile, he had spent more than that on a single dinner with his mistress just the week before. I realized that confronting Michael privately would give him the opportunity to lie, make excuses, or try to manipulate me into forgiving him. Instead, I decided that Michael needed to face consequences that matched the scope of his betrayal. Michael's company Christmas party was scheduled for the following weekend, and it was going to be a large, formal event with all of his colleagues, supervisors, and their spouses. Michael had been looking forward to the party for weeks, talking about how important it was for his career, and how excited he was to celebrate the company's successful year. I realized that the Christmas party would be the perfect opportunity to expose Michael's lies and deception in front of everyone who mattered to his professional life. If Michael wanted to use his success at work to fund his affair while lying to his family, then his colleagues deserved to know what kind of person they were working with. But first, I needed to secure my own financial future and protect my children's interests. Using the information I had discovered about Michael's hidden accounts, I was able to access his savings and transfer the money to new accounts in my own name. Over the course of 3 days, I systematically moved over $200,000 from Michael's secret accounts into new accounts that only I could access. I also gathered all the evidence of his affair and his financial deception, preparing for the moment when I would reveal everything. Michael had no idea that I had discovered his secrets. He continued to act concerned about our family's financial situation, making comments about how we needed to be careful with money, and how he was working hard to improve our situation. "I'm really hoping for a Christmas bonus this year," Michael told me the night before his company party. "Even a small bonus would help us catch up on some bills and maybe have a better start to the new year." I smiled and told Michael that I hoped things would improve for our family, all while knowing that he had been receiving substantial bonuses for months and hiding them from me. The night of the Christmas party, I got dressed in the most elegant outfit I could afford with our supposedly tight budget. A simple black dress that I had owned for years and inexpensive jewelry that Michael had given me for previous birthdays. Michael looked handsome in his expensive suit, which I now realized he had bought with money he told me we didn't have. He was excited and confident, probably looking forward to another successful evening of presenting himself as a dedicated family man and successful professional. The party was held at an upscale hotel ballroom, and it was exactly the kind of elegant event that Michael always loved. His colleagues were dressed in expensive formal wear, the food and drinks were luxurious, and everyone was celebrating what had apparently been a very profitable year for the company. I smiled and chatted politely with Michael's co-workers and their spouses, playing the role of the supportive wife while internally preparing for the moment when I would destroy Michael's carefully constructed image. About halfway through the evening, the company president gave a speech thanking everyone for their hard work and announcing the year-end bonuses and promotions that would be awarded to outstanding employees. Michael was recognized as one of the company's top performers and received a substantial bonus and a promotion to senior director. As Michael stood at the front of the room accepting congratulations and praise for his professional success, I felt sick thinking about how he had used this success to betray our family, while making me believe we were struggling. But when Michael returned to our table, glowing with pride and excitement about his recognition, I knew it was time to reveal the truth about what kind of man his colleagues were celebrating. I asked the DJ if I could make a brief announcement, explaining that I wanted to share some personal words about my husband's success. Michael looked surprised but pleased, probably thinking I was going to give a loving speech about how proud I was of his achievements. As the music stopped and the attention of 150 party guests focused on me, I walked to the microphone with a folder containing all the evidence I had gathered about Michael's deception. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady and clear. "I want to thank you all for celebrating my husband Michael's professional success tonight. As his wife, I've had a unique perspective on just how dedicated Michael has been to his work this year." Michael was smiling proudly from our table, clearly expecting me to praise his work ethic and professional achievements. "In fact," I continued, "Michael has been so dedicated to his work that he's been taking numerous business trips and working late nights for months. He's told me that these professional demands have been necessary because the company was struggling financially, and he needed to work extra hard to keep his job." The audience was listening politely, probably expecting a heartwarming story about sacrifice and dedication. Michael has been such a convincing storyteller about the company's financial difficulties that I actually believed our family was on the verge of bankruptcy, I said, opening my folder of evidence. "I believed it so much that I've been working extra hours using money." Michael's face had gone completely white, and he was starting to understand that my speech wasn't going in the direction he had expected. "But tonight I want to share with everyone the truth about Michael's dedication to his work," I announced, pulling out bank statements and credit card bills. "The truth is that while Michael was telling me we were broke, he was actually hiding over $300,000 in secret accounts and using company bonuses and raises to fund a lifestyle that he told me we couldn't afford." The room had gone completely silent except for a few gasps of shock and surprise. Michael tried to stand up, probably to stop me from continuing, but I wasn't finished. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that Michael's business trips weren't just about work," I said, holding up hotel receipts and travel documents. "They were romantic vacations with his secretary Amanda, who I believe is here tonight." Every head in the room turned to look at Amanda, who was sitting at a table near the back of the ballroom. Her face was bright red with embarrassment and panic. While I was at home with our children, worried about how to pay for Christmas presents, Michael was spending thousands of dollars on luxury hotels, expensive dinners, and entertainment for his affair. I continued. He used his professional success not to provide for his family, but to fund a double life that betrayed everything our marriage was supposed to represent. Michael was now trying to reach the microphone, but several people were blocking his path as they stared at him with shock and disgust. So I want to thank everyone for celebrating Michael's success tonight, I concluded, because it's given me the perfect opportunity to announce that I've filed for divorce, taken custody of our children, and transferred all of Michael's hidden money into accounts for our twins' education funds. As I walked away from the microphone, the ballroom erupted in shocked conversations, angry accusations, and demands for explanations. Michael's boss looked furious, his colleagues were staring at him with disgust, and Amanda had disappeared from her table. The aftermath of that night was swift and devastating for Michael. His affair with Amanda became public knowledge at his workplace, leading to both of them being fired for violating company policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Michael's reputation in his industry was destroyed overnight, as word spread about his financial deception and infidelity. The respect and admiration he had built over years of professional success was gone, replaced by disgust and distrust from colleagues and clients. But most importantly for me and our children, Michael's lies and manipulation were finally exposed, and I was able to protect our family's financial future while building a new life based on honesty and integrity. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized with me receiving full custody of Jake and Connor, and the majority of our assets. The money Michael had hidden was put into education funds for our sons, ensuring they would have the financial security their father had tried to deny them. Michael found a new job eventually, but at a much lower salary, and without the respect and trust he had enjoyed in his previous position. He was also required to pay substantial child support and alimony, leaving him with far less money than he had when he was living his double life. Meanwhile, I was finally free from the financial anxiety and manipulation that had dominated our marriage for 2 years. For the first time in years, I could make decisions about money without worrying about Michael's lies or hidden agendas. The most satisfying part of my revenge wasn't Michael's professional humiliation or financial consequences. It was watching my children thrive in an environment of honesty and security. Jake and Connor no longer had to hear about money problems or feel guilty for wanting simple treats and activities. Sometimes the best revenge is simply exposing the truth and letting people face the natural consequences of their deception and betrayal. Michael had created an elaborate web of lies to justify his selfish behavior, but ultimately, his own greed and dishonesty destroyed everything he had worked to build. The man who had hidden $300,000 from his family, while claiming they couldn't afford ice cream, learned that the real cost of his deception was much higher than any amount of money he could have stolen.